Just going to record a few reviews from Going Steady by Pauline Kael, published in 1969. Forward. Movies which might seem, of all arts, the simplest to write about, may be the most difficult to write about, because they encompass so many different kinds of effort and are susceptible to so many influences. In the last few years, they have been changing and moving into new areas so quickly, and new young directors have been reshaping the art in such extraordinary ways, that it isn't easy to know what's going on, or to offer an informed account of what's going on, unless one really stays at it. To be a casual critic of movies is to be no critic at all, and for one whose interest is more than casual, it's painful to write about movies just occasionally, or to order. What is missing is the connection, or context, in which movies are a continuing art. In such frustrating circumstances, each review one writes has to take for granted a whole succession of unwritten reviews that would have established the basis for one's criticism. Although I had been writing and broadcasting about movies since 1953, I had never had a regular weekly column, and I had just about given up hope that it was really possible to be a movie critic, when the New Yorker offered me one, starting in January 1968. This book, which is my work since that date, is, I think, in some ways, the best writing that I've done, because I had, for the first time, in William Shawn, an editor who loves movies and who never said those obscene words, "Our readers won't be interested in all that." He gave me the space I needed to develop a sustained position from week to week, and for the first time, that total independence from advertisers and from anxieties about reader response that makes criticism possible. I have kept the writing in sequence, including an article I did during the summer months, because this way the reader can follow not only what was evolving in films during a crucial period of social and aesthetic change at the end of the 60s, but follow the reviewers' developing responses. Someone recently sent me a copy of a college magazine with an article called Art as Transformed Subversion: The Elusive Aesthetics of Pauline Kael. I will accept the first part of the title, but I hope Going Steady will make the aesthetics considerably less elusive. Apes Must Be Remembered, Charlie. Planet of the Apes is a very entertaining movie, and you'd better go see it quickly before your friends take the edge off it by telling you all about it. They will, because it has the ingenious kind of plotting that people love to talk about. If it were a great picture, it wouldn't need this kind of protection. It's just good enough to be worth the rush. Adapted from a novel by Pierre Boulet, Planet of the Apes most closely resembles George Pal's 1960 version of H. G. Wells' 1895 novel, The Time Machine. It's also a little like Forbidden Planet, the 1956 science fiction adaptation of The Tempest, though it's perhaps more cleverly sustained than either of those movies. At times it has the primitive force of old King Kong. It isn't a difficult or subtle movie. You can just sit back and enjoy it. That should place the genre closely enough, without spoiling the theme or the plot. The writing, by Michael Wilson and Rod Serling, though occasionally bright, is often fancy ironic in the old school of poetic disillusion. Even more often it is crude, but the construction is really extraordinary. What seem to be weaknesses or holes in the idea turn out to be perfectly consistent, and sequences that work only at a simple level of parody while you're watching turn out to be really funny when the total structure is revealed. You're too busy for much disbelief anyway. The timing of each action or revelation is right on the button. The audience is rushed along with the hero, who keeps going as fast as possible to avoid being castrated or lobotomized. The picture is an enormous, many-layered black joke on the hero and the audience, and part of the joke is the use of Charlton Heston as the hero. I don't think the movie could have been so forceful or so funny with anyone else. Physically, Heston, with his perfect, lean-hipped, powerful body, is a godlike hero. Built for strength, he's an archetype of what makes Americans win. He doesn't play a nice guy. He's harsh and hostile, self-centered and hot-tempered. Yet we don't hate him because he's so magnetically strong. He represents American power, the physical attraction and admiration one feels toward the beauty of strength, as well as the moral revulsion one feels towards the ugliness of violence. And he has the profile of an equal. Franklin Schaffner, who directed Planet of the Apes, uses the Heston of the preposterous but enjoyable The Naked Jungle, the man who is so absurdly a movie star myth. He is the perfect American Adam to work off some American guilt feelings or self-hatred on, and this is part of what makes this new violent fantasy so successful as comedy. Planet of the Apes is one of the best science fiction fantasies ever to come out of Hollywood. That doesn't mean it's art. It is not conceived in terms of vision or mystery or beauty. Science fiction fantasy is a peculiar genre. It doesn't seem to result in much literary art either. This movie is efficient and craftsmanlike. It's conceived and carried out for maximum popular appeal, though with a cautionary message, and with some attempts to score little points against various forms of establishment thinking. These Swifties are not swift, and the movie's posture of moral superiority is somewhat embarrassing. Brechtian pedagogy doesn't work in Brecht, and it doesn't work here either. At best, this is a slick commercial picture, with its elements carefully engineered. Pretty girl, who unfortunately doesn't seem to have had acting training, comic relief, thrills, chases. But when expensive Hollywood engineering works, as it rarely does anymore, the results can be impressive. Schaffner has thought out the action in terms of the wide screen, and he uses space and distance dramatically. Leon Shamroy's excellent color photography helps to make the vast exteriors, shot in Utah and Arizona, an integral part of the meaning. The editing, though, is somewhat distracting. Several times there is a cut and then a view of what we have already seen now, seen from a different angle or from much higher up. The effect is both static, we don't seem to be getting anywhere, and over-emphatic. We are conscious of being told to look at the same thing another way. The makeup there is said to be $1 million worth, and the costuming of the actors playing the apes are rather witty, and the apes have a wonderful nervous hopping walk. The best little hopper is Kim Hunter, as an ape lady doctor. She somehow manages to give a better performance in this makeup than she has ever given on the screen before. My guess is that everything is made vast because Europeans love the wide open spaces in our westerns, and because Sergio Leone, the director, wanted to outdo the scenic effects in American westerns. If a man crosses a street in Leone's Santa Fe, the street looks half a mile wide. A farmer's hat has rooms opening into rooms from a distance, a farmer's hut. The scale of the Italian-made Western, the good, the bad, and the ugly, is what most differentiates it from American-made Westerns. My guess is that everything is made vast because Europeans love the wide open spaces in our Westerns, and because Sergio Leone, the director, wanted to outdo the scenic effects in American Westerns. If a man crosses a street in Leone's Santa Fe, the street looks half a mile wide. A farmer's hut has rooms opening into rooms into the distance, like the Metropolitan Museum. The hotel in a cow town has a plush lobby big enough for a political convention. The movie is like High Noon and the Oxbow Incident and a dozen others all scrambled together and playing in a giant echo chamber. The bad men must be, then, enormously, preposterously evil, larger-than-life parodies, as in a Kurosawa film, and each wound inflicted is insanely garish. Yet, stupid as it all is, and gruesome, the change of scale is rather fascinating. This Italian Western, set in our Civil War period, looks more foreign to us than an ordinary Italian film, which gives rise to speculation about how we alter the scale, and hence the meaning, in our movie versions of foreign stories. Because, although this huge Italian Western, shot in Spain, imitates the externals of American Westerns, it makes those externals so much bigger that what the American Western hero stands for, everything that audiences are supposed to identify with, would look too small, and so it has simply been omitted. The result seems to be popular with American men, who go to relax and enjoy the action. They probably hardly notice, and wouldn't care anyway, that the Western theme is missing. Although nothing could be more harmless than satire of the theater people who are satirizing themselves, making their in-group jokes public, always seem to think they're doing something incredibly audacious, and that each joke is a killer. When Sunset Boulevard was first unveiled at private screenings in Hollywood, I remember an executive's coming away from it talking as if he'd just been to a wife-swapping session with his father. It's this self-shocking insularity of show business people, like kids at school giggling wildly as they talk dirty about the teacher, that probably accounts for how simple-minded much of The Producers, which was written and directed by Mel Brooks, seems, and why it is acted and directed as if each bit of horseplay were earth-shaking. The Producers isn't basically unconventional. It only seems so because it's so amateurishly crude, and because it revels in the kind of show business Jewish humor that used to be considered too specialized for movies. Screenwriters used to take the Jewish out, but now that television comedians exploit themselves as stereotypes, screenwriters are putting the Jewish in, pushing it for laughs, and getting them. Mel Brooks, one of the pioneers in this all-too-fertile field, is a talented man, and as a comedy writer for Sid Caesar and others, he has given us all some happy moments. But he has never written a movie before, and he has never directed a movie, or probably anything else, before, and he has given himself an additional handicap, a camera hurdle that has broken the back of every movie director. Zero Mostel, a one-man obstacle course. Playing the producer Max Bialystock, a role not unlike John Barrymore's Oscar Jaffe in Howard Hawks' version of 20th Century. He is grotesque, where Barrymore was funny. There are no firm rules in movie business. Still, to the question, can a man who insists on combing long, damp hair over a bald spot become a movie star, I would give a provisional no. When Mostel tries to con money out of rich, senile ladies by making love to them, he obviously constitutes a physical danger rather than a romantic attraction. An experienced director, working with a script that has so much that is good in it, could have toned down what is gross and brought out the wit. Brooks has almost no idea where to put the camera, and since the easiest way to get a powerful effect is with close-ups, he keeps almost everything, including Zero Mostel, on top of us. And since he doesn't know how or why or when to move the camera, he can't really utilize the screen as a frame for expressive compositions. He just tries to get some acting going in it, and in this he's limited by his script. The actors say their lines and do their shtick, and they use their shtick up fast, before the plot even gets underway, because the characters have only one dimension: Nazi or fag or sexy girl. Early on, Gene Wilder does his whining, strangled voice bit, and he's fantastic at it. It's almost a shtick of genius. But then he has to coast on hysteria for the rest of the picture. Dick Shawn is a very funny performer, but for his role as LSD, who has blown his mind, to be funny the others should have kept theirs. This, however, isn't a script with contrasts or changes of tone. Brooks, as a writer, relies upon wild ideas, but he doesn't yet know how to join them and make them grow into a comic structure. As conceived, the sequence consisting of tryouts for the role of Hitler in a play to be called Springtime for Hitler is potentially a great sequence. With beautiful directorial timing, each bit could be memorable, and the sequence could still build, but Brooks as director destroys his own best ideas. There is a plot. Bialystok sells 25,000% of a play, intending to produce a flop so that he won't have to pay the backers anything. But his Springtime for Hitler is a success. The fluke success was one of the elements of the first Kaufman and Hart play, Once in a Lifetime, and it has been a standard ingredient of many, perhaps most, farces about Broadway and Hollywood, which are full of serious plays so bad that they succeed as comedies, performers so corny that they are taken for comedians. This comic idea is perfectly sound. It all depends on what you do with it. The producers treats the idea as if it were in itself so unusually wicked that it didn't have to go anywhere. Brooks has no denouement. When the play succeeds and he needs to show us the repercussions and to get his characters disentangled, he folds up. He hasn't prepared the elements that are needed to complete the farce, so the picture dies when the play succeeds. That's not screenwriting, it's gag writing. But one learns to take one's pleasures where one can. Terrible as this picture is, I enjoyed parts of it because I love satire of the theater. And for satire of the theater, as good as Brooks's gags at their best, one can endure even the rank incompetence and stupidity of most of the producers. I'll read more from Going Steady in the next video. Thanks for listening.